You're asking about how does someone find social fulfillment in a relatively isolated community in Northeast Missouri with small numbers. Sand Hill is a small community by choice in that we'd like to think of it as an intentional family rather than, say, a village. That means we can have daily contact with everyone else. We eat dinner together every night. You can find out the rhythms of what each person is doing, what their mood is, what they've been into, what they've been excited about, what they've been challenged by during the day. We want that kind of rhythm to our lives. There's an intimacy to it, there's a comfortableness, and it can be done a lot informally in that basis, all of which suits us very well. There's also a fragility, though, with small numbers. It means that the pool of people available for deep connections, including partners, if that's an interest, which most people have, that is limited. And so there's the question of, what is the quality of your life? Now, there's a number of things we've done over the years that have helped with that. However, I have to admit that some people have left after otherwise really enjoying Sand Hill because it is too isolated or the pool of connections is too small. We do not tend to get a lot of sustenance, certainly from a cultural basis, by building connections with the neighbors. Now, there are some important and non-trivial relationships that we have locally. However, they don't tend to extend over broad value lines. We have commitments to engagement with each other, caring for each other, liberal political views, which tend to be fairly different from a large portion of our neighbors. We're not in an antagonistic position around that. However, it's not a sense of joy or connection or fulfillment for most of us. So a couple things that we've done, there's two main strategies. One of them is we made a big thing happened for us about 12 years ago, maybe a little bit further, maybe 14 years ago, when Dancing Rabbit was looking around for a place to locate. They had given up on California, where they were formed, as a site because of cost of land and because of zoning restrictions. It was very prohibitive to be innovative in construction and energy use in California, and the land prices were exorbitant. They were essentially able to buy land in Missouri that was just as fertile, or maybe more so, than what they would have been looking for in Northern California at 1/10 the cost. You just moved the decimal point one over. So it was a huge capitalization advantage, in addition to which, in our county, this isn't true just everywhere, but in our county, and there are some other spots in the U.S., there's no zoning. So that meant they had no restrictions at all on how they wanted to build. There is zoning in the county seat of Memphis, but in the rural parts, which is where we are, there are no laws that they had, or approval that they needed to gain. Zoning laws tend to be in place to protect property values, and they tend to be anti-innovation because people are worried that new will translate to exotic and problematic, and then people won't be able to sell their property for as much. So they wanted no part of that, and Sand Hill, so being neighbors to us was very attractive. This was, of course, a new project, and it was uncertain how they were going to succeed. However, we made a pitch that we really wanted them as neighbors. That, along with the advantage of the low-cost land and the zoning freedom, was attractive enough that they decided to settle as neighbors. And they bought land 3 miles away. So today, 12 years into, the land they bought was purchased in 1997. So they've been there 12 years, I believe. And they're now a village approaching 50 people. And so they've become an increasingly important source of increased social milieu for us. We have potlucks every Tuesday night, alternating between our place and theirs. In addition, a third community of Red Earth Farm, which is about 4 or 5 years old now, neighbors Dancing Rabbit. So now we've got a pool of about 60 people among 3 communities or so, and we have many relationships across the community lines. It doesn't really matter to us. You're friends with who you're friends with. These are people with whom we have a strong value match, and now we're approximating the same kind of social opportunities you'd find in a large community, because we're the things that, if you have a common interest, whether you want to quilt together or sing in a choir, or you have interest in learning Japanese, whatever that thing is, you're likely to find 2 or 3 other people that are really keen on that, and you don't have to go to St. Louis or something to find them, nor do you have to just hope for the accident of that in a small group. So that's one strategy that we pursued intentionally, and it's paid off very well. And I think now we're a very attractive neighborhood that will probably attract more communities to be nearby, because they will also instantly have the benefit of this greater network And they will have the benefit of instant good public relations that we've been able to build up over 35 years. So that when Dancing Rabbit moved into the neighborhood and tried to explain to people who they were and what they were trying to do, mostly they were getting quizzical looks until they told people, oh, well, we're like Sandhill. And that was then people said, oh, okay. And that was enough. That was a golden ticket to get off to a good start. We didn't have that advantage as the first community in the area, but over time we gradually built those good relations that Dancing Rabbit was able to cash in on. So that's one strategy, and that's worked well. Now, we didn't begin that process until we were 20 years in place. So that meant there were a lot of years we didn't have another community to draw on, and we were much more isolated. The second strategy is one that I've pursued, where my interest in outreach and trying to do social change work and spreading the benefits of what I thought we were learning in intentional community meant that I needed to go on the road. That if I just waited for people to come to my community and visit and found what they were inspired by through example, which we do, that's a very minimal amount of contact. We're out of the way and not on the major beaten path. Northeast Missouri is not a hotbed of alternative living in the country. There are such spots in the U.S. You think about pretty much anywhere from Northern California all the way up to Vancouver, BC, all along the West Coast as a density. You can look at Western North Carolina. You can look at Central Virginia. There's New England as pockets. Around Madison, Wisconsin, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. There's different places that, Ann Arbor, Michigan, that you will see concentrations of alternative living. Northeast Missouri is not such a place, although it's becoming more so simply by virtue of what the three communities have now created. So my strategy was to go out, and while it started gradually, today I'm on the road half the time, and some very important people in my life in terms of the personal connections and the sustaining relationships that add up to a quality life are based on people that I see not in Northeast Missouri, but see in my travels. So, and that will include my fellow board members in the Fellowship for Intentional Community. It includes a lot of the clients that I work with in group dynamics. And now I teach facilitation, and so a lot of my ex-students become friends. So I have a very rich network, only some of which live with me in Northeast Missouri.